and gentlemen, boys and girls, well, they got ass. Shout out to Kim Potter. First degree and second degree manslaughter. She was convicted of just now. And rightfully so. In the case of Duante Wright, I want to say, first of all, RIP to Duante Wright. He was a father. That's why I put that picture there with him with his child for that pure simple fact. So I want to say RIP once again to Duante Wright and condolences to his family. But Kim Potter, well, we'll have to see what she gets sentenced to. I'll say that much. But look like she's on her way up out of here. That's right. She's been found guilty of first and second degree manslaughter, rightfully so. There's no way in hell that you mistake a taser and your gun. The weight on them is different. And I think from the very moment that they walked into the courtroom, they knew that. And I've been watching this case. I've been watching it now probably for the past 3 days specifically because it took a moment for them to come to deliberations. The word was at first they were, similar to a deadlock, and then it switched up to they haven't come to a decision. This was like at 12 o'clock at night or whatever, whatever. But Kim Potter, oh Kim Potter, with her crocodile tears, has been found guilty of first and second degree manslaughter, rightfully so. In the case of Duante Wright, I want to say once again to Duante Wright's family, I'm glad that you can have some closure now. We still have to see what the sentences is going to be. Let's not forget she is still part of the union, and just because she has a guilty verdict doesn't mean that they're going to be strenuous on the actual sentencing, meaning that they could still be lenient on the sentencing. Now, I think, if I'm right, in this case of manslaughter, she's facing anywhere up to 20 years. I know that from a couple of them. I know, you know what I'm saying? We're going to talk about that another time. But, you know what I'm saying? But, yeah, she's facing up to 20 years or more. I hope she gets more because there's no way in hell that a traffic stop should turn into a manslaughter case. And this is what I mean a lot of times when I talk about a lot of people that are online and they talking about the demise and how violent motherfuckers are, whatever. That preconception of people being violent leads up to situations like this. So when you don't understand a lot of times when I talk about Cynthia G and all these other chicks and shit they put out there, this is what I mean. Those preconceived notions led up to this young man getting killed. And I want to say once again, RIP to Duante Wright. RIP to his child is going to now have to grow up without a father, which you can see quite pertinent that this man was involved in his child's life. You know, it's sad. And I don't want to hear any of that stuff. Oh, he was biracial. Da, 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 da. They thought he was black. So y'all need to cut out that biracial stuff and all that, whatever, whatever. They pull me over and I'm like, ¿Y cómo tú estás? Tú sabes la policía. ¿Qué tú quieres? Oh, bilingual nigga. Come on, man. Stop it. Stop it. They thought Dante Wright, light skin, dark skin, whatever the case may be. He is what he was. And it's sad enough to say that this is where it sits. So I want to say RIP to Dante Wright. Kim Potter has now been found guilty of first and second degree manslaughter. She's facing up to 20 years, and I hope she gets every bit of it. And for all those ladies out there that sit back and talk about how men are so violent and so out of control or whatever, what are your thoughts? Are you siding with Kim Potter? Do you think Kim Potter was right? Do you think it was a terrible travesty that went on with that white woman from Brooklyn, Minnesota? And I just want to say something about Minnesota real quick before I get up off here. Hey, yeah, this is going to be a quick one because I don't have much to say about this because it disgusts me. I want to say this about Minnesota. I had this is some time back, but I had met a female that actually happened to live in Minnesota, right? She was a Latina female. And I know, sounds weird, right? But a Latina female, nevertheless, that lived in Minnesota. And I learned from the people she had surrounding around her, who were predominantly white. She lived in Minneapolis, but the people that were surrounded were predominantly white. And I listened to them because we used to do live chats with each other and stuff like that, whatever. And I would listen to her friends and I would be like, yo, your friends are a little bit like biased, racist, or let's say the stuff that they say in there, they would say in the Northeast, if you get what I mean. And it kind of like drew my eye to what's going on out there in Minnesota. And I stopped talking to that female because she refused, I guess, to acknowledge that, yo, those same people might turn on you one day. And you don't realize it while you grinning and you smiling and all that shucking and jucking and all that. A lot of y'all do here on YouTube too, shucking and jucking, the white man's better, and all that stuff. Yeah, it can happen to you too. They'll turn on you. Trust me. That's one thing I do know. And I was taught that by white friends that I have. Don't even some white people don't trust all white people. Because they know that a lot of them have the tendency to switch up on you just like that. And that's not to go to say that black people or Latinos, they won't switch up on you like that. Oh, we all know that. But this particular person I was talking to in Minnesota, it vectored me to stop talking to her because of that reason. So when we look at this, we look at the other situations that they've had in Minnesota, and this is not just the first one. Y'all forget. There's so many cases I know y'all forget sometimes, but y'all didn't forget. This ain't the first situation they've had in Minnesota, right? Y'all are clear on that, right? Remember Philando Castile? I remember all of them. I talked about almost all of them in some effect or another. KIMPOTTER was just the latest, and there's more that will happen because I believe that Minnesota is set up. This is one of them old Midwest mining, trail wagon, prairie antithesis. You have the Mormons that really, like, a lot of people don't talk about the Mormons. I want to talk about that real quick. A lot of the heavy influence that you have in the Midwest, and I'm talking about the higher plain Midwest, like Minnesota, places like that, Idaho, whatever. They have a heavy influence from the Mormon religion. Okay, these were plains towns. These were places where people would prospect and go for gold. This was places where people would prospect and look for oil and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera in the Midwest, historically here in the United States. And based on that influence from the Mormons, there were very, very, from Brigham Young on up, who are very active still in these communities and very influential. And they use it under the guise of Christianity. If I had to make a guess, and I gotta dig a little bit more deeper into it, I would say this by her stature, this by her gumption. I would say that Kim Potter probably comes from that, or either is familiar with that whole Brigham Young Mormon type approach. You understand what I'm saying? And it's very, very, how can I say, I don't want to call it negative, but it's poisonous and toxic within the local populations. And it builds upon, the Mormons wouldn't even let blacks or women join the church at first. I hope you understand that. And they didn't do this, and they didn't allow blacks or other minorities, let me throw that in, or other minorities to join their ranks into maybe close to, and I want to give a guess here, I'm going to say 40, 50 years ago, maybe a little less than that. So it was quite recent as far as like the span of history when the Mormons actually allowed people to be involved in their pews. Now, you can go look up that on your own. I'm pretty sure it's still there. I've known that from years ago, but I'm pretty sure it's still there. They didn't allow minorities to join the Mormon church. And a lot of these people that you see in Minnesota and Idaho and all these places like that or whatever, a lot of these people come from the background influence of the Mormons and their and doctrine. And it almost gets kind of cultish because that's how they were attacked for the longest time. The Mormons, they were attacked as a cult. And if you do your history on that, you'll see that too. They were treated as a cult in the Midwest. They were looked upon as separatists from the Christian religion, and it is what it is. They preach a doctrine of Christianity and what's right is right. And a lot of chances they look at minorities in general as a heathen cultures. The British did this, the Germans did this, definitely. That's how they looked at the Jews when Hitler, who was a Jew himself, came about and killed everybody that he killed. But a lot of these people that live in the Midwest that are white that are doing these things like killing Dante Wright or whatever, they live on a pillar of this Mormon Christianity, secular, but non-secular, non-secular form of Christianity. and it's kind of sick. And I think that's where Kim Potter goes from. I looked at the way she was dressed. I looked at the way she pronounced things. It seemed very Mormonish. You know what I mean? And anybody that lives in that Midwest, or anybody that is familiar with Minnesota or any of those Midwest plain states. I'm not talking about Chicago. I'm not talking about, you know what I mean? I'm not talking about those places. I'm talking about your Idahos, your Minnesotas, and all, those are plain states. And these are where people used to go and prospect for gold and prospect for oil. Plains towns where they would go searching and I don't want to use the word colonize, but they would erect towns and things like that or whatever. These are trailblazer towns, trail wagon towns. And so these people have a history built on that. This is similar as here with the Gnostics in Connecticut, and they helped build their own secular branch of Christianity, believe it or not. The Gnostics, which were a branch off of the Pilgrims, who are right up the street. Like Massachusetts is probably the first stop in Massachusetts, which is Springfield. You can get there within an hour and 20 minutes from here. Now, if you're going to Boston and all that, it's going to probably take you anywhere from 2 to 2.5 hours, depending on how fast you're driving. But once I go through Hartford, I'm in Springfield, Massachusetts. And after I drive through Springfield, it's Holyoke, which I've been through. And then there's a whole bunch of other little smaller towns. So in contrast to Connecticut, Mass is kind of like the same way. They got a lot of little small towns and things like that or whatever. Well, the higher you get into Massachusetts and into Maine and all that, you start getting into doctrines of the Puritans, Gnostics, and these are all branches of those same pilgrims that came over and came into Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock is actually a real place. I've been there before, so I can highlight that. And it's basically shoreline. The whole town is shoreline. I mean, everything from here in this I-95 corridor is basically shoreline. But it's shoreline coastal. So if you could see it for yourself, you would see that ships can easily pull into there. You really don't even have a choice. You know what I mean? To be quite honest with you. Well, the same doctrine is set forth in these Midwest plain towns, but in contraction with the Mormons and some of the Gnostics as well. And they all kind of spread out, but their doctrines stay the same. So I think for a lot of you guys, and I'm just giving you a suggestion, you don't have to take my word for it, but in the future, when you look at a lot of these problems that happen in these plain states, please realize that a lot of these places have history with this type of behavior that goes back, if not a century, 2 centuries. If it doesn't go back that far, it goes back decades. But I would never say no less than a century, okay? And that's without exaggerating. And like I said, these churches, you can look it up for yourself, and just put in history of the Mormon church and minorities. And you will see for yourself the heavy influence that they've had in places like Minnesota, which their main headquarters, believe it or not, the main headquarters for the Mormons is in Minnesota. I swear to God to you. The Church of Latter-day Saint, their main branch and church is in Minnesota. Now, I don't know if that's changed over the years, but last time I checked, it was in Minnesota. And that's why I said, I think Kim Potter, she came from this traditional sense of that Mormon influence, that heavy Christian influence or whatever. And these damn sure invoked her actions because, see, she was scared of that kid and it was nothing but a fucking traffic stop. And I'm seeing these stories over and over and over and over and over and over again. I'm gonna start looking more into them because I see there's a whole bunch of ones that are inconspicuous that never get brought up that happen in these same areas. Meaning they don't make the headline news, they don't make your CNN, they don't make your NBC, they don't make national attention from Black Lives Matter and all these other secular groups, but they happen right there in those higher plain states of Idaho, Minnesota, or whatever. And had it not been for these camera phones and all the stuff that we're utilizing nowadays, we probably would have never heard of these stories. But I'll say to you again, if you're not familiar with the Church of Latter-day Saints and the Mormons and their history of not letting not only minorities, but also women into their church pews, then you'll understand the heavy influence. Now, the women were there within the church pews, but their whole duty was that of traditional women. You wash, you clean, you are the wife of a deacon, you are the wife of this one, you are the wife of the preacher. You get what I'm saying? And it's sad. It's sad. But this indoctrination has taught a lot of these people that based on their Christian belief system, because that's what the Mormons are, it's a branch of Christian belief system, that anybody that isn't white, anybody, They wasn't letting Chinese people, you can look this up, they wasn't letting Chinese people, women, minorities, nobody within the pews of freaking Mormons. Okay, they wasn't doing it until maybe a good 30, 40, maybe 50 at the most years ago. Okay, I know this for a fact. I've had the discussion before prior to me getting on here with you guys. So look it up for yourself. But one thing I will say is this, and I'll leave it at this, and I'll hop off of here, and hopefully have something better to talk about later. Because I hate talking about stuff like this. I really do. I stopped doing stories like this a little while ago because now with this, it's becoming repetitious where you see it so frequently that you got people out here nowadays in other states, including here in Connecticut. Y'all make sure y'all hit that like button while y'all chugging in too. You got people even in the state of Connecticut, New York, and Jersey that feel that they can take the same action as same state play as them. And I'm here to tell you, you gonna fuck around and somebody gonna kill one of y'all. You understand what I'm saying? And I say that not as a threat. I say that not as a a foreshadowing of what might happen to you. But I'm telling a lot of white folks and a few light-skinned blacks and Latinos that like to join in on the action with them. What can I do, boss? What you want me to do? I needs that job now. I got a lot of children at home, boss. Them motherfuckers. They choose to join in it. So they'll do things particularly to kind of try to get you irate. They'll do things that'll put you in a position where they look like a victim, like I tried to demonstrate to you guys last night. You saw several so-called men, really sissies, trying to do their best for me to get for them to get my attention. You understand what I'm saying? And a lot of times they put you in that situation because they're looking for you to react a certain way. You understand what I'm saying? And most of that way they want you to react is based on something that's systematically stereotypical. You get what I mean? So I think Kim Potter thought, based on the stereotype that was put out there, whatever, that would still hold reign here in her 40 plus years of living. And it just didn't. The Minnesota court saw something that I think a lot of people saw. This is bad for tourism, for one. Two, you're making our state, based on the other situations we've had, Philando Castile and others, you're making the state look like it's a headquarters for police shootings. And once you get that, people don't want to come there. New York is suffering the same problem right now. So many shootings there. People don't want to visit there. Y'all make sure y'all hit the like button. I know a lot of y'all ain't going to donate, but at least hit the like button. A lot of people are leaving these areas, in fact, that live in Minnesota and all these places because they're scared to live there because of the retaliation or what they see the reaction may be from local police or whatever the case may be. And I wonder how in depth this actually is. And I think a lot of these quote unquote big bloggers that be out here and they live on one diatribe of just funneling one thing to people. I do this, I do that, I do this. I got a message for y'all. When do you watch the 9 o'clock news or the 6 o'clock news or 11 o'clock news, right? And of course, I have the one story that everybody's talking about. But don't they also talk about the weather? Don't they also talk about good things that's happening in the news? Don't they also talk about other stories? When you start to envelop that mentality, and that's what I try to show you on my channel, I don't just talk about one thing. That's boring. You understand? That's why I talk about different topics. I put up different uploads or whatever. But I think sooner or later, some of these big bloggers, they need to start getting foots down on the ground, being a real journalist, and going to talk to some of these people in Minnesota and ask them what they think of their local area, what they think of the local police agencies there, what they think socially, economically of their areas, and what have they been pinned and what have they been triangulated to as far as living conditions there. Because when I look at Minnesota as a whole, and don't forget, Prince is from Minnesota. It's Minnesota. His estate is still in Minnesota. His brothers and sisters live throughout Minneapolis, Minnesota. Okay, Prince, Prince, all right, who is also biracial. I got something to say about Prince too. You know what I mean? But there's definitely a problem there. And I've heard Prince and others like him prior to his death mention that in interviews and things like that or whatever. And I'm not saying that Minnesota is a bad place. I don't know Brooklyn, Minnesota, but I did have somebody that I was talking to in Minneapolis, which I mentioned earlier. And I saw some of the attitudes of the people that were surrounding her and that were talking, because I was on a video call with her several times. He'd be like, "Who are you talking to?" And then I show my face and be like, "Oh," it's always some kind of negative connotation based on the fact of one, the place where I live at in the tri-state. Everybody thinks it's New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, but based on our accent, even if you're from up in Boston, they'd be like, "Oh, you from New York?" I was from New York. I lived in New York, but I ain't from New York. You know what I'm saying? Or they'll think that because of our accent. You know what I mean? And they'll adjust that accent into being an attitude or personality. You know what I'm saying? So if you're gonna do that with the black population, you would have to do that with the white population just as well, right? And every other population that subsequently comes behind that. And a lot of these people, they just don't do that. So, like I said, once again, I would wish that a lot of going into 2022, I would hope that a lot of these big time bloggers, you would start using your profiles instead of, having daily diatribes from going from, like Kevin Samuels. Like, nigga, you used to do cologne reviews. And judging by the story, shout out to DJ Envy. Shout out to DJ Envy. You know what I'm saying? Based on the background, you was taking your cologne bottles and returning them after you did your reviews. But that's another story. I'm gonna talk about Kevin Samuels later. But what I mean is, you take your whole diatribe, your whole channel is consistent of nothing but talking about women. When you got so much of a following, you can switch a story up for one night and talk about something real. And I could guarantee you, based on how articulate and how consistent you are, people would go to the fold of that. But I'm starting to see in your views, them views are starting to come down more and more and more and more and more. Because like many other YouTubers that have a face, that have space, that have reach, you decide to just talk about bashing your own. You understand what I'm saying? And make no mistake about it. I'm not trying to tell this man how to run his channel or whatever. I actually had a conversation with somebody in the what's the name, the comment section with me this earlier, and ain't no love lost. I'm glad that you keep on continuing to come here. That wasn't what I was trying to express to you, but I didn't want to do it in the comment section and continue. And I said I just do it vocally and visually here on the line. But I will tell you straight up and down, him, Tasha K, other people, just look around and you will see tonight, this in a 24-hour span, just look around. Storm and Rowe, he's in there. Cynthia G, she's in there. All these other big bloggers, just pay attention and you will notice they stick with one subject matter because that's the subject matter that gets them paid. And now that I hear these stories about Kevin Samuels, I came across this video of these four white men that were talking about him, and it was prior to him getting on. And they talked about how he would be in the store bragging he was a YouTuber and all this. I'll talk about it another time. But you guys got to start using your formats to do something a little bit more constructive for 2022 besides fucking gossiping or picking one subject matter and bashing your own and the fact to get donations, which I saw last night with Kevin Samuels. And that's why I put up that screenshot in the community section. Within the first 4 minutes of his podcast starting, there was probably 3 to 4 people that donated. I can't even get all of it in there. 3 or 4 people that donated $250, $100. Another person donated 125. And I'm like, wow. And he's getting all this money from bashing women and telling them how they less. And I'm saying a lot of the women that come up on there, don't get me wrong, they deserve some of that. But a lot of the women, you got to psychologically examine them if you claim to be as intelligent as you are. And I'm just going to say this and I'm going to move on. But if you're intelligent as you claim you are, then you will see that a lot of the women, before you even get up on the camera on them, a lot of those women are mentally unstable. A lot of the women have been bashed their whole life. You don't know their whole life story. And even if they come in there and they're like, and they giggle, 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 it might be a time, buddy, where one of these girls, based on something you said to them, goes and commits suicide, goes and does something to somebody, becomes more crasp and evil, and becomes like the synergy of fucking Cynthia G. You know what I mean? And I'm not taking shots at old girl because we gonna get her back right. Trust me, we gonna get her back right. We ain't gonna throw her in the trash can. We ain't gonna throw her in the trash can. But You guys need to start using your platforms. And if you're really truly talented, you need to start using it to cover stories like this. You need to not only cover stories like this, but be consistent with it. And I guarantee you, all those viewers that you got, they're going to stay there. And the ones that leave, underline this, they were only there because of confusion. You understand? And nothing good comes from making money out of confusion. I know that better than anybody. I was in the music business. Nothing comes good out of making money off of confusion, drama, and all that. Because sooner or later, that energy of that money that you collected from that comes back to haunt you. And I've seen it 50 times. I've seen it from numerous artists, okay? So this is not exaggeration. I've seen it from CEOs that are now, you know, off on, you know, whatever. And I've seen it, you know, and it's just sad that this is the state that we're at. There should have been more people covering Dante Wright for the past 3 days, but like the owl I am, only a few gonna get that. But like the owl I am, I look around and I saw who was talking about what. Nobody was talking about Dante Wright. Not even as of last night. The smaller bloggers were. And that's why I try to tell you guys, start putting your concentration and start putting your money into some of these younger, not even younger, newer bloggers coming up, because some of these newer bloggers are older. You know what I mean? And pay attention to what they're saying, not the amount of followers they have. The amount of followers you have doesn't determine how pertinent what you're saying is. You understand what I'm saying? And I don't know why you guys get that contrast. And I think you get it from, to be quite honest with you, a white contrast. And the reason I say that is this: you take what Google says from their analytics and what makes their machine move faster and what makes their machine more popular. Because, see, even if you got a portion and you are monetized by YouTube, you're not getting the advertising revenue that they're getting. You understand what I'm saying? And the reason I know this is because they have multiple people that advertise with them in the hundreds of thousands. That's why you get a litany of different commercials that pop up, whether you're searching, whether you're a YouTuber, whatever. You understand what I'm saying? I still have, if y'all watching in my rebroadcast, I still have ads that go back and forth through my fucking what's the name, and I don't get paid for any of it. And it was on the licensing agreement update, which was the first one was 4 months ago, which they started doing this. Previous to that, they didn't do it. Y'all please hit those like buttons if you would. Cash App and all that is in the description box. Day before Christmas Eve, you know what I'm saying? If I could head out tomorrow, whatever, you know what I mean? But y'all gotta start using y'all platform for something better. And to be quite honest with you, it should have been more people talking about Dante, right? Especially when this trial was going on, and they wasn't. They were talking about love and hip hop. They were talking about who's sleeping with who on this show. You know, there's so many of these, you know, drama shows that are out that I see the litany of most, and especially the older women, because I've seen some seasoned journalist chicks that make this, and it's three of y'all I know. Like I know you in person. You understand what I'm saying? I know you in person. I ain't gonna throw you out there like that. I just say Cindy. Hi, Cindy. You know me in person. You understand? Hi, Cindy. You know me in person. You know what I mean? That this they have journalistic expertise, and instead of doing the right thing, and they worried about a YouTube algorithm and how popular they're gonna be. You understand what I'm saying? It beats the hell out of me. It beats the hell out of me. So when I say something like, okay, Cynthia G riding out with bashing men every day and promoting abortion, or Storm Monroe always talking about the Kardashians and everything else. Hey Storm, hey girl, or freaking, you know, the other one that I just mentioned, Kevin Samuels, you know, and that ride's gonna come to a quick close. You better stop buying Ferraris and all that shit, because trust me, the mentality is changing. We're going back into a pandemic stage, so people's mentality is changing, or in the aura of things are changing, and pretty sooner or later, somebody's gonna come at you, buddy. Trust me. Somebody's gonna come at you. They're gonna come at you hard. They already try to come at you hard to get you taken off of YouTube. And if you want me to prove my point, Kevin Samuels, I'll prove it at this. I mentioned earlier in this little broadcast right here, and I'm about to get up off of here, but I mentioned earlier before, and I've seen some of your earlier videos, so don't front. You know what I'm saying? And please don't act fucking tough. Don't act tough, all right? If anything, don't act tough. You're not tough. You was a nerd. Kevin Samuels used to do cologne reviews. Kevin Samuels used to get on and talk about the diatribe that he has right now. And this is why I said most of y'all, a lot of y'all got to stop using this limited amount of intelligence that you're using and use the broader sense of intelligence that's available. Because if you would have just went back and looked at some of his earlier videos instead of currently what's going on right now, take 5, 10 minutes out your life and just keep going like this. Just scroll. Just keep going like that. Look at me. Just scroll till your finger hurt. Some of y'all, the screen will keep going even if you do this. Just find out what this motherfucker is. What we at? 2013? Hold up. 2014? Hold up. 2015? Hold up. 2000. Here we go. Oh, that nigga Devin wasn't lying. You was doing cologne reviews. And you was taking bottles of cologne and you were returning them to all those Hermes stores and all that other little shit you like to buy because regularly just standing on your own, you can't do it, Poppy. And we all know that. You know what I'm saying? I know dudes like you. You got to pay your way. You're not the dude that can walk into the building and command attention. You're not the dude that can walk into the building and command that a woman come sit next to you. You understand what I'm saying? And I know that because I was one of them and you wasn't around. I've been to every party you could think of, every club you could think of nationally, whether it be Compound in Atlanta, SO in Atlanta, all those places. Fountain Blue down in Miami, King of Diamonds in Miami. We went in there with Puff and Cassie in tow. We followed right behind them. This is when T.I. came home. You know what I'm saying? Had the little luxury joint. They had parking there. It's a big, huge warehouse if you're never familiar with King of Diamonds. So I never saw you around in places like that, but I know I seen dudes that were like you. You understand what I'm saying? And I know those dudes, how they get down. They try to entice the women with money. They try to entice the women with clothes. They try to entice the women with cars or whatever, whatever. And the stupid ones, the silly ones, the greedy ones, they'll rock along with that. I'm going to get on Kevin Samuels to talk about that a little bit more in detail later. I ain't going to do that here. But once again, KIMPOTTER has been found guilty of first-degree and second-degree manslaughter. I want to say, who gives a shit? Let her go. And hopefully they'll give her a sentencing that's justified. And I think it is well known. And I just want to say one last thing again. All you big bloggers, y'all need to start getting a little bit more serious if you're calling yourself journalists, because you have a very big problem separating the three. You understand? Do you know what the three are? Of course you don't, because you have no history in fucking journalism. I went to school for digital media. One of them is a journalist and journalistic integrity. This is actually a highlight and it's written. Journalistic integrity, okay? The second thing is this. The second thing is feet's on the ground. And that's what a lot of you don't do. Now, right now, I'm in the crib. It's freaking freezing outside. I don't feel too well, you know what I mean? Like as far as I got a sore throat and a runny nose. I just, you know what I mean? Ain't no Omicron and none of that shit. But it's wintertime, you know what I mean? So, I'm doing what it do. But you guys have no feet on the ground. You never see these guys at a location. Pay attention. You never see these guys at a location anywhere except if they're trying to show off something they got, trying to show off their new car, trying to show off an IG thought like Brittany Renner. Shout out to Brittany. Hey, Brittany, how's it going there with that stank box? The loudest Vijay in the game. Salute. You ain't your Vijay. A Vijay come on camera and talk for Brittany. He'd be like, yeah, me and Brittany, we've been through a lot. It was the one time we was at the basketball game, and I said, Brittany, don't do it. Don't go with him. She said, no, I want to go. He's got a Ferrari. The stories I could tell you. Brittany's got me in so much trouble. Now we got a baby. And I was this small, and I went to, Brittany Renner. Out of all the chicks, that's why I know you ain't never getting no chicks, man, because anybody would have told you the last. Listen, if you want to really pay attention to these guys, I'm just saying this. I got to throw this in. If you really want to pay attention, I'll get back to the third one in a second. I ain't forget. But if you really want to pay attention to these guys, check the women that they pick. You understand what I'm saying? My ex was a nerd. You know what I'm saying? Like for real. My ex now works for Yale. That puts it, puts things in perspective. She works for Yale. Yes, my ex works for Yale. My ex was super intelligent. I like to find myself as intelligent. My ex black girlfriend is super intelligent. I would never take that away from her. You know what I mean? She introduced me to a whole bunch of theories and things that I never even knew. You know what I'm saying? So put that in perspective. When you get guys like, damn, see, I don't want to diss him because some of the things he's right on. So I don't want to diss him. I just want to put in perspective that, dude, you got to change the flow. And a lot of y'all that are out here got to change the flow. So I don't want to sit there and go head in on him. But I'm just saying, if you're an intelligent man, like you claim you are, but I think you really just a slick hustler, you know what I'm saying? There's a big difference. Remember I told y'all about being slick versus being intelligent? You know what I'm saying? I think Kevin Samuels just found a niche. And I think sooner or later, the crowd gonna turn on him. And they're gonna turn on many that are like him or similar to him and other different gumption. Now, let's let me get back to the third one. I'm gonna skip that because that'll take me another 30 minutes. I'll save that for another live. The third one is this, most importantly. You have to have a plethora of different topics. That's what makes up the news. Now, even if you guys are going this whole format of trying to be the new talk show host, the new Dr. Phil or the new Oprah, whatever the fuck y'all corny motherfuckers are trying to do, because really it's corny. Because that shit don't go no further than YouTube. That's my point. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you're not getting fucking CBS pulling up. You're not getting ABC pulling up with any of this shit that y'all are currently doing. You understand? Meaning that CNN is not going to come to fucking Cynthia G and be like, you know what, we want to pick you up for a segment so you can sit on here and promote abortion and talk about men of color. Or they're not going to pull up to Kevin Samuels or ABC and be like, you know what, we want to bring you on for a segment on our nightly news and have you talk about bashing women on a nightly basis. They're not going to pull up to Storm and Rowe and be like, you know what, Storm, we want you to come in and pull in at CBS and have you talk about nightly diatribe or who's screwing who and who's funny looking and how you're better than everybody else. You fat fuck. Anyway, it's like, irregardless, guys, the only thing I'm just saying to you is start using your vehicles for something better than just sitting back gossiping all the time. Because I even can tell it by the videos I put up. And if that's your crowd, you will always be on YouTube. Take it from somebody that's been in the business. You will always and forever be on YouTube. Now, if that's cool with you, that's cool. But you got to remember one thing. If YouTube ever shut down, if YouTube ever says they want to eradicate your page, you're fucking done. Guys, I'll talk to you later. Once again, KIMPOTTER found guilty of first degree and second degree manslaughter. I say to her, and let the judge do his will. Links in the description box, guys. PayPal, Cash App, $STRINGERBELL80. That's Stringer Bell 80 at Cash App if you wish to donate. It's almost Christmas Eve. And I'm gonna have to treat it like another day, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I will talk to you guys later and look for some uploads I'm about to put up too, so you guys can check out or whatever. And like I said, to all three of y'all, Storm and Roll, I'll be playing with you, but I ain't like that punk shit you did with Cynthia G. I gotta tell you that. And I know y'all go back or whatever. Hey, Storm. and Kevin Samuels, I don't hate you. You know what I'm saying? But son, you way more talented than that. So that shit you doing right there, in certain areas, that would get you beat the fuck up. You know that. Come on, you know that. And for the other one, Tasha, out of the ones that I mentioned, I mean not Tasha, Cynthia G, out of the ones that I mentioned, you got the least chance of popping. That's all I got to say. Especially you, Cynthia, you ain't start out that way. You know you didn't start out that way. You started out over there with Boyce Watkins. Shout out to Boyce Watkins, man. Shout out Corey Holcomb, Zoe Williams, the Zoe What Show. Make sure y'all go check that out. It's in the community section of a lot of these things. Before I get off of here, all the people that I just mentioned, motherfuckers, stop through sometime and say, yo, thank you for sharing my shit or something like that. You know what I mean? Throw something in the Cash App or something. You know what I mean? Don't be a sucker, because y'all be talking about against suckers. And that's some sucker shit if you can't do that. Y'all ain't that big, but I love y'all, though. All right.